Hey everybody, it's Marie, the Everyday Mother, bringing you today's Daily Mother Mythbuster. So, what I love about all these things that I've learned is that it's given me a chance to take that and apply it in my life, and especially take that and hand those as tools to my children in things that they're going through in their lives. So, recently I had this opportunity to do this with my 8-year-old in Conversation of the Shadow. As she was turning 8, I could see this conflict begin to arise within her as outside influences were able to affect her more and more. And I saw this struggle between light and dark start to emerge within her, and it was heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to watch your precious little 8-year-old, especially for me, because she's my first and because she has always just been so innately good. And so to be able to see this struggle arise within her was heartbreaking for me because you could see how much she wanted to go one way, but these influences were trying to take her another way, and it was just a pure struggle, and I could see it within her, and it was heartbreaking my heart as a mom. And especially now that she's 8, I know that I can only do so much, and that my guidance is all I can give now. I can no longer force her to make any choices, and so I really wanted to sit down and have this conversation with her. And so I took the opportunity to do that while we were doing something else. I've noticed that if I sit my kids down face to face, they kind of get intimidated and feel like I'm pressuring them or really lecturing them. So I wanted to make sure it was in a really safe environment while we were doing something else. So I was teaching her to sew by hand. We just started to have this conversation, and I said, "Hey, Ashlyn, so what do you think the shadow is?" And I said, when I say that you're showing up in your shadow or that you have your shadow side, what do you think that means? And so at first she was like, I don't really know. I said, okay, so let me explain it this way. When you are yelling at your brother, or when you feel that angriness inside you, or just different times when you're feeling that anger and that pressure and that frustration and showing up yelling at people, I said, that's your shadow. I said, okay, so if that's your shadow, what would your light look like? Oh, okay, well, that's when I'm being nice to my brother. That's when I'm sharing. That's when I'm being obedient. That's when I'm speaking nicely. Yes, awesome. So once we were able to lay that out, and then we were able to get into the conversation a little further. And I had the chance to tell her, I said, now you are 8. And I can guide you all I want, but I can no longer force you to do anything. This is all your responsibility from here on out. So all of these choices are yours. And I said, now that you're 8, this shadow is going to want to show up even more. And it's going to be even harder to resist unless you know how to utilize it and what to do when you're feeling it, how to recognize it. So I told her, I said, you know what, when you're yelling at your brother and you feel that pressure, I said, you know, the best way to step out of that pressure is to show up in your light and to ask for that light to come back. I said, light always overcomes darkness. And that's really important, especially as an 8-year-old, for her to know that no matter how much darkness she feels or sees around her, that she can always ask for that light back, and that light will come back to her, and that light always overcomes darkness, and that light is always waiting there for you to ask it to come back, or for you to step into that light, to make that choice. So I made sure she knew that. I said, your shadow is really stubborn. Once you're in your shadow, it's not going to want you to step out of it back into the light. It's going to want you to stay there. And it's going to tell you things like, it's all your mom's fault that you're feeling this way, or it's your brother's fault, or you don't have to try to step back into your light, that it's all everyone else's fault, and just try to explain different things. I said, those are lies that the shadow will try to tell you to get it to stay there. And I said, it's really important that you know that those are lies. All of this is stuff that us as adults sometimes don't even recognize. It's very difficult, even as an adult, to recognize when the shadow is lying to us, to get us to stay there in the shadow, and the different ways that the shadow shows up in our lives. And as a parent, being able to hand that tool over to my daughter to help her recognize when she's in the shadow and the different ways that the shadow is going to want us to try to stay there, and the things that the shadow might tell her. Nobody loves you. I've already heard her say that. Nobody loves you. Nobody listens to you when you speak. This is all lies that the shadow tries to tell us to get us to stay there. And to hand that tool over to her is such an important thing, and I'm so grateful for it. And I noticed a change in her when I did that. And I've noticed a change in her since then. And I said, you know what, Ashlyn? There are times where I'm still going to show up in my shadow. I want you to know 2 things about that. One, When I show up in my shadow, feel free to call me out. Say, hey, Mom, you're showing up in your shadow. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. Go step into your light. Totally okay with that. Giving her the permission to call me out on my stuff, huge, very huge, especially for these kids, but also for me, to see from their perspective and to know that someone's going to be holding me accountable. And the second thing was to tell her that when I'm in my shadow, that it has nothing to do with her. Sometimes I'm still going to show up. I'm still learning these things, babe. But just know when I show up in my shadow, it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with me learning still, and me still taking steps forward. That I'm not perfect yet, and that I'm learning, and that this is not a reflection of how you are. This is a reflection of me. You could just see all of this weight kind of come off of her shoulders. And even since then, I've been able to really talk to her about it. And when she starts getting angry and, oh, nobody listens to me, and starts throwing a fit, I'm like, hey, guess what? You're in your shadow. Go step away for a minute. Come back when you're ready to step into your light. Let me know. And you can see her go, oh, and kind of process this like, oh, I get it. I get that I'm in my shadow. I can feel it. And you could tell she could feel it too. She's like, okay, I get that. And as they grow up, I know that I played the victim role for a very, very, very long time, still fighting my way through that one. But to be able to hand our kids this accountability, not just as lip service, not just saying, hey, guess what, now you're accountable, but showing them what that looks like and showing them how to step out of their victim role and into accountability and into recognizing the difference between light and shadow is huge, huge in their lives. So that's my thought for the day. Head over to Mother Myth's Tribe. Let me know what you think. Can't wait to see you there.